What's up, everybody? Welcome in. It is Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. I am your host, Josh Elmer, right here, Iowa, at the voice of college football, where even in the end of the month of June into the month of July, there's plenty of happenings out there in Hawkeye athletics. Josh Elmer here with you. You can follow me at Josh on Rep. Please follow my work and the team's work over HawkeyesWire.com. Just head on over to HawkeyesWire.com with USA Today Sports, HawkeyesWire.com, and give us a follow on all of our social media platforms. Just search Hawkeyes Wire, and you can find us on Twitter, X, Facebook, you name it. And, of course, everybody should be following the voice of college football. Well, great to see everyone tonight. Welcome in on Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live right here, Iowa at the voice of college football, where we've got a Big Ten Media Days contingent to discuss off the top with you tonight. Iowa football today unveiling its contingent that it will be sending out to Big Ten Media Days at the end of next month, July 24th, Big Ten Media Days. And as you can see from lovely Las Vegas, Nevada, that is where Big Ten Media Days will be held in 2025. And you look and you see right there, what do you see? You see a couple, several items that will define this Iowa 2025 football season. A couple of sixth-year returnees for the Hawkeyes, Logan Jones, Ethan Hurkett, who each had decisions to make. And Logan Jones and Ethan Hurkett, in true Hawkeye fashion, they made the decision to return to Iowa. Think about those two guys. Logan Jones, the offensive representative for the Hawkeyes coming up at Big Ten Media Days end of next month. Logan Jones, somebody that has started all of the past 3 seasons for the Hawkeyes, now has played 39 games, 38 starts across his Hawkeye career, and was one of the key pieces for Iowa in putting together the season that was for Caleb Johnson, a season for Caleb Johnson where he rushed for nearly 1,600 yards. Obviously, Caleb Johnson set single-season Hawkeye records for total points with 138 total points, 23 total touchdowns, and the 21 rushing touchdowns for Caleb Johnson a season ago. And Logan Jones, alongside some of those familiar faces up front for Iowa, some of the returnees we've talked about over the course of this offseason, the Bo Stevens of the world, the Jennings Dunkers of the world, those guys that were there to lay the foundation for this now Tim Lester era of Iowa offensively. So Logan Jones, the offensive representative for the Hawkeyes coming up at Big Ten Media Days, again, he helped play a significant role in Caleb Johnson morphing into what Caleb Johnson and the Hawkeye rushing attack, what it morphed into a season ago. And you're hoping that that experience in the center of this Iowa offensive line from center Logan Jones, that is a big-time piece for Tim Lester, for Kirk Ferentz, and for ultimately Mark Gronowski in changing the fortunes for this Iowa offense and becoming more explosive in 2025. So Logan Jones, the offensive representative for the Hawkeyes. Defensively, the first name, Ethan Hurkett, to Big Ten Media Days for the Hawkeyes down again in Las Vegas. Ethan Hurkett, somebody that has been a big part of what Iowa has done each of the past 2 seasons, 2023, 2024. That's when his career really ramped up for the Hawkeyes. And, of course, last season, all of his 13 starts for Ethan Hurkett, the Hawkeye defensive end, came a season ago. But Ethan Hurkett, in his career, 127 tackles, 20 TFLs, 7.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and so much of that production coming over the last, really, almost the entirety of it coming over the past 2 seasons, and a lot of it coming over the course of last season when he was a starter for the Hawkeyes. 1 interception, 1 pass defensed as well for Ethan Hurkett in his Hawkeye career. So of that production for Ethan Hurkett in his career so far, 108 tackles, 17.5 TFLs, 6.5 sacks, and all 3 of those forced fumbles coming over the course of the last 2 seasons, and those 3 forced fumbles all last year for Ethan Hurkett. So what did Iowa send to Big Ten Media Days? Well, they sent a couple of true Hawkeyes, guys that made that decision to come back to the program, right? Probably in Logan Jones and in Ethan Hurkett, each could have had professional futures after last season. And anymore, I guess college football is a little bit of professional football, minor league football, maybe to some degree. But hey, they could have gone and they could have made that jump to professional football. Would Logan Jones, would Ethan Hurkett have both been drafted? Okay, I don't know. Probably both sign undrafted deals, though, if they choose to leave Iowa at the end of last season. They, in true Hawkeye fashion, made that decision. And I've said this a number of times right here on Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. Iowa, I think, as well or better than most or anybody in the Big Ten and in college football, the retention side is so good for the Hawkeyes. And in both of those 2 names, Logan Jones, Ethan Hurkett, that retention on display. Guys that had that decision, if they wanted to go, they could have gone. They chose to come back to Iowa, and they will represent the Hawkeyes from Big Ten Media Days. And then the final puzzle piece for Iowa at Big Ten Media Days is Cohen Intringer, the rising defensive back for Iowa that, look, so much of the fortune for the Hawkeyes, a large portion of it for a defensive backfield that at times last season was not what Iowa fans have been accustomed to seeing. A lot of what you're hoping happens in a positive way for the Hawkeyes on that back end of Phil Parker's defense, that group that Phil Parker will be working hand in hand with very closely. A lot of that will depend on how much of a step forward does Cohen Intringer take in 2025. So he's the final puzzle piece headed to Big Ten Media Days for the Hawkeyes. Logan Jones, Ethan Hurkett, couple of 6-year Hawkeyes, and then Cohen Intringer, who will step into, we think, right, a starting role. And when it's somebody that hasn't started a lot for a program and they get that Media Days designation, you feel like, okay, is that a sign that Kirk Ferentz, Phil Parker, and this defensive staff, this coaching staff as a whole, are they basically telling us, hey, yes, Cohen Intringer, he is a starter for the Hawkeyes in 2025? Because you look at it, and Cohen Intringer, he's played a lot for Iowa, 30 games played. He started once last season for Iowa, but that's it. That's the lone start for Cohen Intringer. He's got 27 career tackles, 1 pass breakup, 1 interception, a couple of passes defensed, and that lone interception that would have come last season, if you remember, early for Iowa during that Michigan State contest over in East Lansing. A game that I'm still trying to put the puzzle pieces back together of why Iowa didn't win that game versus Michigan State. But one of the big highlights was Cohen Intringer and his interception off of Aiden Childs. So, again, what do these 3 players represent for Iowa? Well, the stability, the retention for Iowa, the stick around and develop for the Hawkeyes in Logan Jones and in Ethan Hurkett, and to that same degree for Cohen Intringer as well, who obviously is not somebody who just joined the program. He's been a part of this Iowa defense. He's been a part of developing with Phil Parker and company, and now is a junior out of Michigan, out of Walled Lake Western, Cohen Intringer. But that is the representation for the Hawkeyes at Big Ten Media Days. The couple of guys that have produced a ton for Iowa, they're 6-year guys. And then Intringer, who alongside, obviously, Xavier Wampa back there at the safety position, you're hoping those 2 guys are big-time anchors for the Hawkeyes at safety. Alongside, we'll see how corner shakes out for Iowa. Probably TJ Hall, Deshaun Lee, at least to start. Jalen Watson, okay. Could he factor in? That certainly is a possibility. Shaheed Barrows, as time rolls along throughout the summer and into fall camp, could Shaheed Barrows be a name that we're talking about in the defensive backfield? Maybe. We'll wait and see on all of that. But we know that Iowa, I think, is telling us Cohen Intringer, as we thought, going to be a big-time playmaker for the Hawkeyes in 2025. The goals for each of those guys, what are they entering 2025? For Logan Jones, a chance to come back and continue to refine his skill set and put himself in a position to be a long-term professional if he can continue to build upon the tape that he's already shown at Iowa. I think, obviously that's at stake for Logan Jones, and being a part of helping Iowa enhance its passing attack, get its passing attack back to where Iowa is truly a complementary football team. And not offense, defense, but complementary in the sense that it's not just Caleb Johnson rushing for nearly 1,600 yards. It's Iowa being able to pass protect and Logan Jones getting guys in the right spots to allow Gronowski to go feed these weapons on the outside. So that at stake for Logan Jones. Ethan Hurkett, can he continue to build upon what has already been a nice Hawkeye career? You're basically counting upon Ethan Hurkett being one of your best pass rushers this season alongside Max Llewellyn, who I think has a chance to be a big-time difference maker for the Hawkeyes. But can Ethan Hurkett, can he continue to elevate? Can he approach double-figure sacks, TFLs? Is that a possibility? And if it is, then what does that mean for his professional future? And for Intringer, this is the big showcase probably in 2025. So the Iowa contingent, one final time in the open here, the three players that we know headed to Big Ten Media Days at the end of next month in Las Vegas. It'll be center Logan Jones. It will be defensive end Ethan Hurkett, and it will be Cohen Intringer, the safety for the Hawkeyes. Some good news elsewhere for Iowa. Looks like Mark Gronowski really, really impressed at the Manning Passing Academy. So the Manning Passing Academy happening recently. And this via a story from Sean Bach over at Iowa 247, Hawkeye Insider. Go check out those guys' work. David Eichholt, Sean Bach. I think they are, if not the top of the food chain in the Iowa media landscape. I think they're right there in that conversation. But Mark Gronowski, one of the members that went over to the Manning Passing Academy, and he turned some heads, as did John Mateer, Oklahoma quarterback. Here's what Mick Hargue with CBS Sports had to say about what he saw at the Manning Passing Academy. Two guys that I actually had a chance to see last season, John Mateer, who was at Washington State, now at Oklahoma, and Mark Gronowski, who was at South Dakota State, a national champion, two-time national champion. He now steps in at quarterback at Iowa. I thought they both looked really good. Mark Gronowski looked like he put on some good weight, and playing at Iowa and that style, I feel like that's going to benefit him. Both of those guys for programs who are hungry for good quarterback talent in places that have struggled with quarterback play for Oklahoma and Iowa. I think both those programs have a lot to be excited about. Gronowski and Mateer both looked really great this week as well. So, look, it's the offseason. As several of you in the chat are pointing out, this is not the first time that an Iowa quarterback has gone to the Manning Passing Academy, and we've heard good things coming out of it. Spencer Petras, right, was a Manning Passing Academy participant, and you heard good things there. T. Hink chimes in. Deuce Hogan was invited to that camp. So there's a number of quarterbacks over the years that go to the Manning Passing Academy, and we hear good things. And we've heard good things about Iowa quarterbacks in the past that have gone and been a part of the Manning Passing Academy. But for where Iowa is at right now, when you have somebody that's in attendance, that's taking in all of the action from the Manning Passing Academy, look, we need something to feel good about at quarterback as Hawkeye fans. Need something to feel like, hey, this quarterback that Iowa went and probably spent a pretty penny on in Mark Gronowski, this is someone that can turn the corner for the Hawkeyes. And for someone that was there and took in the action, I'll take the compliment. I'll take the high praise for Mark Gronowski. And at least for the meantime, until we play football, feel like Iowa might have found what it hopes it found out of the transfer portal and out of the two-time national champion FCS quarterback Mark Gronowski. I'll take what's being billed, that this is somebody, again, alongside John Mateer, that looked like one of the top 2 quarterbacks at the Manning Passing Academy showcase. So, look, the who's who of college football was there. Arch Manning was at the Manning Passing Academy event as well. So there were a number of top signal callers there, and I don't think it's a small thing that somebody that was in attendance said that Mark Gronowski was one of the best that they watch alongside John Mateer at the Manning Passing Academy. Mark Gronowski would not be a name that you would just throw out there to throw out there. If you're looking for attention, if you're looking for buzz and clicks, probably you're looking in the direction with a bigger program. Arch Manning, if you sat there and said he was the most impressive at the Manning Passing Academy, well, that would certainly make sense in terms of garnering interest. So that was a positive development for Iowa, that Mark Gronowski looks as advertised so far. Obviously, the proof will be in the pudding when we boot this thing off in a short amount of time, getting close to about 60 days until we play football in 2025. But I will take tonight the victory that Mark Gronowski was impressive, and that this is a positive sign of things to come. Let's hit some of your chats early tonight. Phil Steele released his predicted order of Big Ten finish. Where does Iowa sit in that? We can break down that, as well as just the Big Ten as a whole. What does Phil Steele think? What is he predicting for 2025? I'm Josh Helmer. Give me a follow on Twitter, or X, formerly known as Twitter, at JoshOnRef. And everybody should be following the voice of college football at the VOCFB. And please like and subscribe to support this channel, Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. That's this program. And, of course, the channel, Iowa, at the voice of college football, where we're talking college football 24/7. Well, 24/7, 365, all year long. We're talking college football. Maybe it's not quite 24/7, 365, but we're talking college football, Iowa athletics year round. So like the channel, subscribe, share this broadcast, and just remember, Monday nights, 6 o'clock, Thursday nights, the call-in show, 6 o'clock right here, Iowa, at the voice of college football. Okay, a couple of your comments before we move on to Phil Steele's predicted order of finish. T. Hink, Taylor, great to see you. Hope you're having a wonderful end of June Monday night. Josh, do you think the Big Ten championship game will ever be in Las Vegas? Has had a great home in Indianapolis, and Indy feels like more, I mean, it just is more traditional Big Ten country. But dollar signs and bidding might talk, and I would not be surprised if Las Vegas at some point down the road hosted the Big Ten championship game. A Big Ten championship game, Tony Petitti, he as the Big Ten commissioner, and oh, by the way, we don't hear often from Tony Petitti, but we did hear from Tony Petitti alongside Joel Klatt today, so that was kind of interesting. And a new college football playoff model potentially emerged from that conversation. We can chat about that in a moment. But Tony Petitti is someone, Taylor, that I think tries to think outside the box and maybe not just go with what has been a traditional line of thinking. So on that note, could the Big Ten championship game ever be in Las Vegas? Yeah, I would say absolutely that's a possibility. As long as Tony Petitti is the man in charge, I think, yes, that is a possibility. Let's see, the Buck Wild Hawkeye. Crying emojis. So did Petrus. Yes, Petrus, as you pointed out, showed out, right, at the Manning Passing Academy not too many moons ago. So if that's what makes you want to pump the brakes, then by all means, I'm not here to sit there and tell you that Iowa has fixed its passing attack, that Tim Lester has solved all of the issues that have ailed Iowa over the past half decade plus until we see it. I am Buck Wild Hawkeye. I am, more than anything, I'm a show me that it has changed. I got to see it to believe it. I think oftentimes when we do preseason rankings and preseason publications, whatever they may be, so often you're trying to, at times, if you're a media outlet, come up with something that's maybe a little bit off the beaten path. And I'll use an example that is close to, I think, Hawkeye fans' hearts and Hawkeye fans' minds. So many years it's, hey, Nebraska's back, right? This is the year, and this is not just an Iowa channel trying to pick on Nebraska. I just think they're a good example for this syndrome where, because Nebraska historically has been a blue blood program, every year, every summer, Nebraska, that's a trendy pick to get back in the mix for a Big Ten championship. That's a trendy pick to, years past, win the Big Ten West. And lo and behold, another season comes and passes, and it doesn't play out that way for Nebraska. And another season comes and passes, and Iowa is still the better football team than Nebraska. The rule of until it's proven differently, probably we shouldn't anticipate that it's just going to be different. So to your point, we heard that about Spencer Petras in the past. And with Mark Gronowski, there's some similarities. There's some parallels to be drawn to Cade McNamara. You went and you got a player, a quarterback that had success, that produced at another program, that comes into Iowa and has had injuries, right? And so you can't just assume that this is going to work out better for Iowa than Cade McNamara worked out for Iowa. We've been down that road where it didn't work out how the Hawkeyes hoped or anticipated it might. I'm going to be optimistic on this evening. I'm going to drink the Manning Passing Academy Kool-Aid with Mark Gronowski because we need something positive. T-Heek, though, I'm going to pump the brakes on the Manning Academy. Petras was a Heisman contender after he went through that academy. It is something different, right? Going out and throwing on air, and you could showcase the arm. And when you're not under the gun and taking live bullets, it's obviously a different world. How long do you think it will be, Buck Wild Hawkeye, how long do you think it will be or take for Kirk to hire Spency as QB1 coach and teach them the ropes of practicing? Well, I don't know. I mean, Spencer Petras, I think you're saying that a little bit facetiously, maybe, but I'll take it as a serious question, and I'll entertain it. Spencer Petras could be a really good quarterbacks coach down the line. Spencer Petras is someone that sat there and, look, there were a lot of twists and turns that weren't all that pleasant for Spencer Petras. We can sit here and we can talk about Mark Gronowski right now going to the Manning Passing Academy. And look, we had that discussion with Spencer Petras, and then lo and behold, Spencer Petras didn't elevate Iowa to Big Ten title contention. Spencer Petras, against ranked opponents, he didn't have you seriously in the mix. Big Ten championship game, you weren't seriously a factor to win that Big Ten championship game. But one thing Spencer Petras you have to give him credit for, you have to give him kudos on, is he sat up there, and whenever things did not go according to plan, whenever things did not go right, every single turn, every single twist, Spencer Petras went in there, and what did he do? He faced the music. And so for that, I think that is a clear piece of leadership that you have to say that Spencer Petras possesses. And I would say as a coach, you have to be able to navigate that, right? You have to be able to navigate those choppy waters. So, and I think Spencer Petras can coach the position. Now, could he go out and play it to the level again that would elevate Iowa to go win a Big Ten championship? The answer is no, that wasn't the case. Now, he had an offensive coordinator in Brian Ferentz, a play caller in Brian Ferentz that I think everybody agrees it wasn't good enough for Iowa. That's what led to the eventual Beth Getz stepping in and giving the pink slip, the dismissal papers to Brian Ferentz. But you wonder, I mean, look, how much better could Spencer Petras have been in a different time, a different place, a different scenario? I don't think, again, that it elevates Iowa into, say, Big Ten championship contention status, but that's someone that, look, as a player versus a coach, what you were as a player doesn't always dictate what you're going to be as a coach. Great players oftentimes are terrible coaches. We see that all the time in sports. So, look, how long is it before that could happen? I don't know that it's necessarily all too far away, and I don't know if that would be a bad thing for Iowa if Spencer Petras winds up being a coach for the Hawkeyes. Happy to see everyone on Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live tonight. I am Josh Elmer. You can follow me at JoshOnRef and give the voice of college football a follow at the VOCFB. Search Voice of College Football on X. Search it on Instagram, on Facebook, and you can keep up to date, not just with Iowa, but with everything going on across the many channels at the Voice of College Football. Okay, so Phil Steele, we're in magazine season. We're in that point of the calendar year where, look, preseason rankings, feel how you want to feel about preseason rankings. I, as someone that is trying to do a Monday, June 30th show for you, thank you. Please give me all of the rankings that you could put out there. All of the power rankings of this quarterback and that running back group, wide receiver, you name it. It's how we feed this family on Iowa at the Voice of College Football, Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. So, and Phil Steele is one of the most respected voices, right, in preseason prognostication. I think that's fair to say. Phil Steele is one of the architects of the preseason college football magazine. So here's what Phil Steele has for 2025. Penn State, your Big Ten champion. And Penn State, let's see, you bring back Drew Aller, who led this program to the college football playoff. The end of the Notre Dame contest was not the prettiest look for Drew Aller. Maybe that's a moment that he can build upon and, look to and say, hey, I've been in that moment when if Penn State wins a Big Ten championship, if they get back into a college football playoff setting where you don't make the big mistake late in the football game. But we saw Drew Aller make that versus Notre Dame, and it could very well be that that's just the DNA of one Drew Aller at quarterback. That could be the case, and that might be a reason to poke a hole in Phil Steele having Penn State as his Big Ten champion. The backfield, though, is really, really talented for the Nittany Lions. Nick Singleton, Katron Allen, those two running backs are back. Everybody, even with some of the defensive defections for that Penn State football team, a lot of people agree that Penn State, if not the most talented, they're right there. And, oh, by the way, they've got something that a lot of these teams we'll talk about don't have, and that is, again, even if you're not super high on Drew Aller being that five-star guy, living up to that five-star billing that he had when he came in, they do have the quarterback back in Drew Aller that's played a bunch of football. And that counts for something. That counts for something. Okay, number 2 in the Big Ten preseason power rankings, the projected order of finish from Phil Steele. He likes Ohio State to finish second. Ohio State, look, the defending national champion, and they've got arguably the best player in college football coming back in Jeremiah Smith. Iowa fans saw that firsthand, that trying to cover that guy one-on-one, very difficult task. And there's not many in college football, maybe none in college football, that can effectively shut down Jeremiah Smith without just trying to toss 2-3 bodies at him at a regular basis. And that means that, hey, Carnell Tate, Ennis, and others will probably be running free for Ohio State. So the quarterback situation is yet to be determined for Ohio State. We'll see. We think Julian Sain's going to be the guy for the Buckeyes. And he just might have so much talent around him that though he's inexperienced, that might not matter a whole lot. And maybe that's the team to watch, to like, to go win this conference. So Penn State 1, Ohio State 2. Oregon, the Ducks are replacing Dylan Gabriel, who authored a tremendous final collegiate season with the Oregon Ducks. Came over, of course, transferred in from Oklahoma. Came in and had a great 2024 season and had Oregon as the Big Ten champion, the number 1 overall seed going in. I still think Oregon got a raw deal with the way that the initial 12-team college football playoff was set up. The fact that they faced Ohio State first in the college football playoff was an unfortunate break for an Oregon Ducks team that, look, they were the best team all season long, right? And obviously had beaten that Ohio State team, but in the rematch, they got walloped pretty good in the college football playoff. But Oregon replacing Dylan Gabriel off that season, which was a really good one, even though it ended in a fashion that left Ducks fans with a bad taste in the stomach. Dante Moore, how good is he going to be? That remains to be seen. So Ohio State, Oregon, and number 4 on this list, Michigan. Quarterback Bryce Underwood. All quarterback situations in the Big Ten that we'll see, right? Which of those do you feel the best about? And that could determine which of those winds up being the most serious contender alongside Penn State, or the team that goes and wins this conference. So Penn State 1, Ohio State 2, Oregon 3, Michigan 4, and Illinois checks in at number 5. I tossed a couple of stars next to Penn State and next to Illinois. And the reason being, those are really the only 2 teams. Those are the only 2 teams in Phil Steele's projected top 5 finish in the 2025 Big Ten season and 2025 Big Ten standings. Those are the only 2 that bring their quarterback back. Luke Altmaier returns after throwing for more than 2,700 yards, 22 touchdowns, 6 picks. I think Luke Altmaier is a good quarterback. I like him a lot. I don't know that the parts around Luke Altmaier are good enough to seriously contend for a Big Ten championship, but I'll give Illinois some proper credit. They return a lot. They get the quarterback who I like, Luke Altmaier, back. So I can understand where Phil Steele has Illinois number 5 right there. Kurt Cignetti still getting respect from Phil Steele and the media folks out there after Indiana burst onto the scene a season ago. Started 10-0 and then lost to the Buckeyes, won their final game, got into the college football playoff, but of course they were bounced and handled by Notre Dame in the college football playoff. They check in number 6 in these preseason Big Ten standings from Phil Steele. You've got Fernando Mendoza coming over, the talented quarterback from Cal that a lot of people like. USC. What do you think about USC? You got this group right here, 6, 7, 8, and 9, that there's a lot to be sorted out between these 4 teams here that probably you could bunch together and feel similarly about. And I could make a case, we could sit here and make a strong case that this is why you should like one over the others. But USC is number 7, according to Phil Steele in the preseason Big Ten rankings. Tough to figure out what Lincoln Riley is going to stroll out there in 2025. Jordan Mailata, he's the quarterback we think for the USC Trojans. Nebraska 8, and now we get to Iowa at number 9. And so much for Iowa. We'll rest on, again, we sat here just a moment ago and discussed how much stock do you put into Mark Gronowski at the Manning Passing Academy. Same song, different dance. We've heard it before, right? But as Mark Gronowski goes, and as Mark Gronowski does or fails to elevate Iowa, that's going to go into determining whether or not this number 9 spot is correct or if it's too low for the Hawkeyes. I think, to me, this reads to me like Phil Steele is not totally sold on Mark Gronowski reinventing the wheel at Iowa and igniting Tim Lester's offense and the Hawkeye passing attack in year 2 of Tim Lester on campus. I think it reads like Phil Steele thinks that Iowa, for the most part, will remain mostly Iowa. Because to me, if you think that Mark Gronowski is stepping in and he's elevating, he's taking Iowa's passing game and bringing it from a place to where, look, you were basically the worst offense nationally and the worst passing offense nationally a couple of seasons ago to just get me to respectable, get me to middle of the pack. If you get me to above average throwing the football, then Mark Gronowski, look, it's tough for you to paint me a picture where teams with all of them unsettled quarterback situations, Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, USC, Nebraska, not Nebraska for the unsettled quarterback situation. Dylan Raiola, of course, we've seen, but maybe still remains to be seen that Raiola can be that kind of like we've talked about tonight with Drew Aller, that true 5-star. Is he the can't miss NFL prospect down the line that some thought Dylan Raiola was? But look, Raiola not the same as some of these other quarterbacks bunched above Iowa in this projected Big Ten standings finish, where are all of those teams going to finish in front of Iowa if Mark Gronowski's good? I would say probably not. I would say at the very least, you're feeling confident that Iowa's in that top third of the league if they get good to really good quarterback play from Mark Gronowski. And I understand that is asking a lot. If you're saying, hey, Mark Gronowski is going to step in and deliver good to great, good to really good to great quarterback play. We haven't seen it at Iowa dating back to obviously Nate Stanley and company. So you're talking about 6+ seasons that we haven't seen that for Iowa. But if you get that, if you get good to above average quarterback play, then look, Ohio State, of course, I can understand that Ohio State, Oregon, maybe even Michigan are just flat out more talented than Iowa, and on more talent alone, even sans great quarterback play, that those teams, they're going to finish above Iowa in the standings. I understand that argument. That's not a crazy thought to have. But Indiana, USC, Nebraska, do you feel that way about those guys? That if Iowa's really good at quarterback, that you don't finish above those teams? I think you do. So to me, this is Phil Steele saying that he's not sold on Mark Gronowski elevating Iowa at the quarterback position and igniting Tim Lester's offense to take that next step. And probably a lot of folks out there would say that's maybe the educated gamble, right? Because prove it before I'm buying into it. And Phil Steele has probably sold a lot of magazines by not consistently betting on a bunch of crazy things to happen that go against the grain out there. So he's not going against the grain with Iowa. He's not a dark horse believer in the Hawkeyes. The chat here jumps in. 9th place probably puts you 5-4 or 4-5 in the Big Ten. Yeah, I think that's right. Cheviota. I think that's right. That probably means you're right there, bunched up, middle of the pack, and maybe one game above 500. That's probably right. 6-3 get you to maybe that next ledger up. I think if we could just be competitive against a top 25 team this year, that would be impressive. Kirk can't compete with top 25 teams anymore. That's a good discussion topic. Is that one of the barometers? Is that the measuring stick? Is that one of the litmus tests for the Hawkeyes in 2025? I feel like you can boil it down to a lot of the conversations on, does Mark Gronowski, does he look like a quarterback we haven't seen in black and gold in more than half a decade? And if the answer is yes, then again, I think they're in possible contention to compete for a Big Ten championship, to get into that Big Ten championship game. Because I love what Iowa has defensively up front, and Max Llewellyn and Aaron Graves and in Herkett and other names that we're going to watch continue to develop, and Joseph Anderson and Jeremiah Pittman, Merriweather. So Iowa defensively, I think, is stout up front. I'm hearing good things like you're hearing good things about Jaden Harrell, Carson Shire. So I trust that front of Iowa's defense is going to be very, very good. I think it's telling. I've said it all summer long. I'll continue to say it all summer long until we get into fall camp that, to me, it was telling that Iowa didn't go out and add a transfer portal linebacker. If that was an FCS guy that they brought in at backer, if that was a lower level FBS guy, I think, or if it was the Nick Jackson type, that you go and you get somebody that played a bunch of successful, highly productive, triple-digit tackle football at Virginia. I think Iowa gets that guy based on Seth Wallace's reputation, based on Phil Parker's reputation. If they felt they needed that guy, Iowa didn't act, and so that tells me the, again, front of Iowa's defense, I feel like, is in a really good place. The defensive backfield, okay, that remains to be seen. But if I paint you a picture where Phil Parker has earned the benefit of the doubt, and he has earned the benefit of the doubt, and if I paint you a picture where either TJ Hall or Deshaun Lee take that leap forward and then insert a Jalen Watson, a Shaheed Barrows, we'll see another younger, inexperienced cornerback that I'm not thinking of right now. Now you're in a good, improved situation at cornerback. Cohen Intringer. We opened the show talking about Cohen Intringer as a representative for the Hawkeyes at Big Ten Media Days. So that tells me that Phil Parker and Kirk Ferentz feel really good about what he's going to bring to the table in that defensive backfield alongside Xavier Wampa at safety. So I can paint a picture where Iowa quickly jumps back into that discussion, that group, as one of the top defenses nationally. And if that's the case, then you got a pretty good chance, if the quarterback play is really good, to be in the mix for a Big Ten championship. But if it's not that, if it's not the quarterback truly being one of the prized gets out of the transfer portal, if we're not talking about Mark Gradowski as that surprise get, and it will be a surprise to some that aren't Hawkeye fans or Hawkeye followers, that Gradowski, if he could elevate Iowa in that way, if it's not just that quarterback dimension that you're watching, I think that's a good point, Buck Wild Hawkeye, that can Iowa, and there's several key dates for that, for Iowa to showcase that they can indeed go toe-to-toe and match up with and not get embarrassed by top 25 teams. That has to happen for Iowa, for Kirk Ferentz, for Tim Lester. And then hopefully you feel like maybe you could parlay that into more transfer portal success down the road and revenue share success down the road for Iowa, to where maybe the Hawkeyes in this final act, this final stanza of Kirk Ferentz, can morph back into a more regular Big Ten title contender. But it's got to happen. The key dates. I mean, how do you guys feel about Iowa State? Are they still a legitimate factor in the Big 12? Are they a college football playoff factor in your mind? Rocco Becht, of course, returns. So at Iowa State, litmus test type game, measuring stick game early. But I'm certainly looking down the road. When you're talking top 25 teams, I'm looking at Penn State. I'm looking at Oregon. And I'm maybe looking at that road trip game to USC. But that, of course, remains to be seen. Don't know what to think about USC just yet. Again, they're in that group. Just to finish out the Phil Steele preseason Big Ten order of finish here. So rifle through these quick, and we'll move on to some other things here. Penn State 1, Ohio State 2, Oregon 3, Michigan 4, Illinois 5. So that's your top 5. 6 through 10, Indiana 6, USC 7, Nebraska 8, Iowa 9, Minnesota 10. The next 5, Washington 11, Wisconsin 12, Rutgers 13, Michigan State 14, UCLA checks in at number 15. And then the bottom of the barrel is Northwestern. It's Maryland 17 and Purdue 18. So that the Phil Steele preseason Big Ten predicted order of finish. A number of Hawkeyes earned preseason honors, by the way, from Phil Steele. That group for the Hawkeyes, a couple of those guys, of course, names that we spoke about that will be making their trek on over to Big Ten Media Days from Las Vegas. But in case you missed it, the group that will be have been honored by Phil Steele in the preseason, this from a couple of weeks ago, but we haven't touched on it here. 5 Hawkeyes garnering preseason All-America and 8 getting all Big Ten accolades from Phil Steele. Senior offensive tackle Jennings Dunker, who, oh, by the way, was the highest rated Hawkeye offensively a season ago by Pro Football Focus. He graded out the best. Jennings Dunker is thought to be, you grade out like that. Jennings Dunker, I would imagine, has caught the attention of some NFL draft folks out there. Senior defensive tackle Aaron Graves and senior return specialist Caden Weegan, all second-team All-Americans, preseason second-team All-Americans from Phil Steele. Center Logan Jones, again, Big Ten Media Days contingent, one of the trio headed. He was a third-team All-American from Phil Steele. And sophomore punter Reese Dakin, a fourth-team All-American by Phil Steele. Reese Dakin, kind of a sneaky piece for Iowa a season ago. You're replacing Torrey Taylor. There's so much expectation on you to be great, and Reese Dakin was pretty good in his first go-around, and obviously Phil Steele is thinking he's going to continue to build upon that. The preseason second-team all-conference honorees for Phil Steele for Iowa. Senior offensive guard Bo Stevens, kicker Drew Stevens, another specialist that probably you don't spend in the offseason and maybe even in season unless things go wrong, which typically they've been good. You don't spend a ton of time talking about Drew Stevens, who, with Iowa as it's historically been constructed, Drew Stevens is the kind of guy that's going to go win you or lose you a football game, and more times than not, it's win you a football game, like obviously he has done in the past for the Hawkeyes. Third team selection is senior defensive end Ethan Hurkett. Again, another young man that will be representing the Iowa Hawkeyes from Big Ten Media Days down in Las Vegas at the end of next month. Let's see a couple of folks out there. Chris is okay. T. Hink asking, and let's see, Thor is asking. I guess the cat is out of the hat. I might as well address the elephant in the room, right? Not trying to keep any secrets here on Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. Chris has made the decision that he will step away from this program. So at least temporarily, and that might be full-time. So love Chris, appreciate Chris Meglio, really appreciate his energy jump-starting this thing. I miss him as a co-host on this program. I don't think it's as good of a program, minus Chris, but hopefully we'll get someone in this seat opposite myself in short order and continue to try to bring you great Iowa content every Monday night at 6 o'clock and every Thursday night at 6 o'clock. So in the meantime, thanks for hanging in with me on Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. It's a lot of Josh Helmer, and I understand that, and I do apologize for that. At some point, we'll have somebody else in this seat opposite me, and it will be a better show for that. Let's see. We don't play many top 25 teams. We play top 5 teams. That's Asa Waters, who chimes in with that. Or we get the bottom 50 teams. Yeah, so not a ton of that in between there where you're talking about fringe top 25 teams. You're either getting the very best of the best, or you're not seeing the top 25 teams at all. That, I think, is that's a fair assessment, and that probably is going to be the case this season. It looks like, at least on paper going into this thing. We'll see about Oregon. That might be top 20, top 15 type Oregon team if Dante Moore isn't all that and a bag of potato chips. If that's a drop-off there from Dylan Gabriel to Dante Moore, though a lot of folks like him a lot, then maybe you're talking about an Oregon team that isn't quite in that echelon with, say, Penn State, who you're going to welcome into Kinnick Stadium. Let's see. What else do I have on the docket for you before we call it a night? Bad news for Hawkeye Wrestling. It looks like Gabe Arnold, reportedly today, has been dismissed. So it's been a rough couple of weeks for the Iowa wrestling program, and I know a bunch of you care a lot about that. NCAA qualifier Gabe Arnold reportedly dismissed from Iowa wrestling. Big time shock today. I don't know, maybe some of you on the inside saw or knew that this thing was coming, but this certainly a surprise for me with Gabe Arnold. The specifics, don't know a ton about it just yet. It was Pat Menino who provided the initial report that Gabe Arnold had been dismissed by Iowa, broke the news on social media, the wrestling room, Pat Menino, and Gabe Arnold now will have 3 years of eligibility left. Arnold, an overall record of 27-8 with the Hawkeyes, a dual meet record of 13-3, a Big Ten record of 6-2, and he's going to have 3 years of NCAA eligibility somewhere else, 2 years at Iowa, and now he's off. Of course, this on the heels of the Bo Bassett development. So tough couple of days for Iowa wrestling, though. Who knows? I don't live in the world where if Coach Brands decides that somebody's got to go, and for XYZ reasons, in the case of Gabe Arnold, somebody's got to go. And in the case of Bo Bassett, then somebody's got to go because there were one too many demands, and I won't claim to know what the reported or alleged demands were from the Bo Bassett camp. But if something like that's going on and you're Coach Brands and you feel like it's time to put your foot down, then you put your foot down. And that's seemingly what has happened with Bo Bassett and now with Gabe Arnold. And Gabe Arnold, I don't know, violation of team rules. We will probably find out more about that in the days and weeks ahead, I would imagine. So we are monitoring with Iowa football a couple of recruiting decisions. You might have one or a pair of defensive backs to add to this 2026 recruiting class in short order. And the one that we feel really good about is Darian Jones, the 3-star corner out of Omaha, Nebraska. So this should delight Hawkeye fans. It looks like Iowa is headed into the Cornhusker State, and they're plucking a defensive back away from Nebraska and from others. All of the predictions out there from the recruiting experts are rolling in for Darian Jones, the defensive back prospect, corner prospect out of Omaha North to Iowa. 6'1", 170-pound corner. I like that. A corner that has a little bit of size about him, a little bit of length, some wingspan is a big-time thing to try and go cover these types of receivers. We mentioned earlier a name like Jeremiah Smith. I think if not Jeremiah Smith, you look at Ryan Williams at Alabama maybe, and there's a handful of others you could throw my direction as the best wide receivers in college football. You're going to see some of those guys in the Big Ten at times. And in order to have a chance to go cover those guys and shut them down and lock them down, you need somebody that can bring the wingspan, bring the size, the length to the equation. And Darian Jones looks like somebody that can do just that. So we'll see, I think, July 4th for Darian Jones. That's when the decision date is set to arrive. So hopefully we're talking about a Hawkeye commit on July 4th, a holiday commit. I think it's always fun when players commit on July 4th or, holidays out there. Makes it kind of unique. July 4th, you're hanging with your family, you're grilling out, and all of a sudden, you maybe get some good news, a new Iowa Hawkeye to add to the equation. And it certainly looks and appears as though Darian Jones will be joining Iowa's 2026 class in short order. He helped Omaha North to a 9-3 record a season ago. Two-way guy, played a receiver and had 11 touchdown grabs, 16 total grabs. And as a corner, which of course is more important in this instance for Iowa, led the Vikings in interceptions, had 8 interceptions with Omaha North a season ago. Listed as a corner, thought to be a corner in this class for Iowa if Phil Parker and the Hawkeyes can land him, but obviously 6'1", 170 pounds, and hasn't gotten into this Iowa training program yet. Probably could play all over, right? You could be looking at a safety if you wanted him to play safety. You could be looking at a cash down the road for Darian Jones, but sounds like corner is at least the starting block. And then on Tuesday, we'll be monitoring C.J. Hester, the 6'1", 185-pound defensive back out of Cocoa High School in Florida. I don't know the pronunciation there. Not from the Sunshine State. Could be Cocoa High School. Probably is Cocoa High School. So my apologies to any of our Sunshine State listeners if I absolutely butchered that. But C.J. Hester out of Florida. Iowa made the final 6 schools here, and he will decide tomorrow on Tuesday, July 1st. Hester's thought to be a big-time talent by On3. 6'1", 185-pound defensive back, again, out of Florida. He'll announce on Tuesday, and On3 says 4-star recruit for Hester. 121st ranked player nationally, number 14 player in the state of Florida. On3 rivals ESPN. They're all in agreement. Hester is a 4-star talent. And listen to this group, the final 6 that Iowa is alongside. Some SEC folks in there. Auburn, Florida, Georgia, Miami, and Syracuse alongside Iowa. At least one Florida insider. I know that at least one Florida insider went sneaking behind that paywall, and the thought is that it'll be Florida tomorrow. But we can cross the fingers and hope that there's a late recruitment here and a flip, if you believe that he's headed to Florida, for Iowa late before this decision tomorrow for C.J. Hester. Would be a big-time get for Iowa and its defensive backfield haul in this 2026 class. If we're talking about by week's end, you wind up with C.J. Hester to go along with what you've already got. And, by the way, Darian Jones probably going to be joining this class. Feel really confident about that one out of Omaha North. So, I don't know. Sometimes recruiting, right before you make that decision, sometimes recruits just go with the heart, and maybe Iowa is the heart. I know that for C.J. Hester, Iowa certainly made a big-time impression with his recent official visit. He was a part of that big group that came in on June 20th, and C.J. Hester said it publicly that Iowa made a big-time impression. I think probably surprised him how much that he liked Phil Parker and Iowa and the family environment, what the Hawkeyes had to offer, but it sounds like still an uphill battle for Iowa, but we'll cross our fingers and we'll hope for good news for C.J. Hester tomorrow. Again, that'd be a blue star. I guess we can go with blue star, a blue chipper, 4-star get in this 2026 class for Iowa. Would join Ronnie Hill and Marcelo Vitti in this Iowa class if the Hawkeyes could land him. Iowa right now, 13 commits in that 2026 class, and it's ranked highest by On3. It's 37th nationally, according to On3. Let's see, anything we can get to before we get out of here. Hannah Stolke is in the midst of the Team USA AmeriCup, and hasn't seen a ton of floor time, but has played well. Kate Martin has had a nice run of it of late in the WNBA. It's been fun watching bits and pieces for Lucy Olson. Of course, Caitlin Clark, a WNBA All-Star captain. We found that out the other day. So that great news for Caitlin Clark is, again, she continues to rehab that groin injury. Let's hope we see Caitlin Clark back out there and healthy in short order. Don't rush her back. Don't need to do that. And we'll see. I haven't was prepping for this show and didn't go dive into just yet Caitlin Clark's media availability. I think she met with the media today or this afternoon or last night. I think it was today. And I'm sure she was asked to update her injury status. I didn't see what Caitlin Clark said. Hopefully it's good news on that groin injury. We need her back. The Indiana Fever needs Caitlin Clark back. And Iowa fans need Caitlin Clark back to help satiate this summertime, right? Sports viewing time. Probably many of you are Major League Baseball fans, and you dial into that as you count down 60 plus odd days until Iowa football arrives. But we've been kept company by some media availabilities, which we can dive into on Thursday. Hey, Thursday night will be the call-in show, and hope many of you will jump in and share your thoughts, ask some questions with me as I sit in the hot seat over here, solo dolo on Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. You can follow me at Josh on Ref. Please go out and like and subscribe to this channel, Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. Really am trying to build an Iowa community here where you guys come in on Mondays, on Thursdays, and we make this something fun where we laugh, we get fired up, we talk about the successes, we celebrate the successes of Iowa, and maybe we squabble a little bit at times when things don't go according to plan for Iowa. But building an Iowa community where we can all come in here and hang out and just talk Hawkeye athletics on Mondays and on Thursdays. Let's see. Anything else that I haven't touched on today before we get out of here? I think that's just about it. Maybe one final comment from you, Buck Wild Hawkeye. Thanks for alongside Asa and Cheviota and Thor. And let's see, give everybody proper credit. My man T. Hink, as always, all of you that have been hanging out on Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live, and those of you that have jumped in the chat, appreciate you guys. Fun to be with you on a late June Monday here. Final day of June. We're jumping into July tomorrow. I think if we stopped caring so much to establish the run and Kirk made halftime adjustments, we just maybe could compete again. Yeah, and I understand the complaint. I get it. Way too conservative at times. With Caleb Johnson and with the quarterback situation not materializing into what we hoped it would be a season ago, and with Cade McNamara, the injury hand you were dealt, and with Cade McNamara just not being what you thought he was going to be coming over out of the transfer portal for Iowa, that might have tied the hands a little bit for the Hawkeyes. And even with that, you probably could have thrown the football and probably should have thrown the football a little bit more than you did. Hopefully, Kirk Ferentz can relinquish and hand those reins over to Tim Lester and let Tim Lester continue to install this Shanahan offense and let Mark Gronowski go find some of these names we've spent this summer talking about, the Reese Vanderzees and on and on and on. And we hope Jacob Gill taking another leap. And we hope Caden Weege and Sam Phillips, hopefully that passing offense, you can have more trust in it. And Kirk Ferentz can have more trust in Tim Lester, letting the hair down a little bit in 2025. Hey, that's it for me. That's it for us. Everybody have a wonderful Monday night. Thanks for hanging out with me on Iowa Hawkeyes Primetime Live. I hope you'll make this a regular Monday stop. Fill up that chat. Fill up that comment section. Let me know the dumbest take of the night. Let me know your favorite take of the night. Share some of your thoughts, your questions, comments, storylines that you want me to delve into on our next episode. We'll be back with you on Thursday night. But until then, thanks for joining. Please like and subscribe this channel. That's the best way for me to monetize this, to grow it, and to make it something that, is worthwhile and something we can all be proud of. You could catch this on your favorite audio platform, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, iHeart, you name it. And of course, YouTube coming to you live every Monday night at 6 o'clock right here, Iowa, at the Voice of College Football. Until next time, we'll do the call-in show on Thursday night again, 6 o'clock. Thursday night, we'll chat with you. And until then, go Hawks. Everybody have a wonderful Monday. And adios, June. Hello, July. Go Hawks, everybody. So long.